They wake up every day, they say, what am I going to do to give back? What am I going to do, to help somebody, to make someone's life better? Do they want to make money? Absolutely. They're in it to make money. Everybody has to be self-supporting, but they care a little bit more about what they're doing when they wake up.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm really excited to connect with Esta Singer. As a brand marketing architect, she puts businesses craft messaging. Let me start that. As a brand messaging architect, she helps businesses craft messaging that stands apart, attracts clients, and drives growth. Her mission is to level the digital playing field by empowering business owners with a clear, compelling brand messaging framework, one that creates a transformative experience for her clients, helping them connect authentically and achieve lasting success. Congrats on creating transformational experiences for your clients, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
This is great. I love what you're doing. You're 100% right. It's human to human, always.
Yeah,
always human to human.
I love it. And I'd love to discuss with you what most companies get wrong when trying to explain their value, because it seems like a big sticking point for a lot of companies that are trying to scale.
I think what a lot of companies get wrong is that they put their product first. They're saying, oh, these are the bells, these are the whistles, this is what's great about our product. They don't necessarily, and they do it broadly. They do it to everybody, and they try to, cast that huge net, thinking, well, I'll get the most fish that I can, I'll get the most eyes that I can. And really, getting back to the human to human, it's about who is your audience? Who your brand is a person. It's like, who am I speaking to, and who do I want to meet? And who's going to want to meet me, and who's going to want to be my best friend and be loyal? So I think what they get wrong, or some, not all, they go to the masses. They try to appeal to the mass, when in fact, you need to know exactly who your audience is, how old they are, what their demographic is, what motivates them. Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? It depends on, what your offering is. I had a client who had a furniture store, a beautiful furniture store. And, we worked on their buyer persona, which would be your target audience. And she said, well, Saturdays, families have time to look and go online and shop on Saturdays. But if you go deeper into who's your buyer persona, do they have kids? Are they at soccer games on Saturdays? Are they at baseball games? You're posting at the wrong time. You're reaching out at the wrong time. So I think you really need to dig deep on motivations, why they want your product. They need to feel like you're speaking to them. I find with a lot of people in their websites that they make it very generic. They make it for anybody who might be visiting. When I'm visiting a website, I want to speak to somebody, I want to give me a choice, do you want me to click on A, B, or C? Yes, that's me. Boom. People like to be seen and heard, and they want to know the brand sees and hears them. So that's what I think. And unfortunately, I think it's with a lot of small businesses. They're so desperate to get those eyes that they do that generic, I'm just going to do a generic message, and I'm going to try to get as many people as I want. But they're going to get the quality clients by being very specific on what they offer and who they want to attract.
Yeah, it's a paradox that a lot of businesses in the small business world, and even the startup space, get wrong, is that they assume that, well, everyone can use our product, or we want to get as big of a, like you said, a big of a net as possible. But
right,
when they stretch that net so wide, the holes get really big and all the fish swim through it. You don't catch anyone because it's so generic. It doesn't evoke the right emotions. And the ones that, the businesses that really succeed and thrive, even if it looks like they have a huge customer base with a lot of variety, they started off with really niche down focused message and go-to-market strategy, because you're not able to evoke the right emotions in the right people unless you really focus on them. And like I said, show you understand them. And that is just, you need to pick one or the other, and going specific is what actually works. And once you have that one group hooked in and they're loving your product and they're happy, then you can use that to build off and attract more and kind of widen your focus, or adapt the product or version for a different audience. But just going for everyone all at once is
not the right way to go. You really need to. So it goes back, to your messaging, right? Like, who am I speaking to? Like, who wants to hear what I have to say? You can say it to everybody, but you're also, gonna lose the interest. Sometimes people say to me, what do you do? I said, I get people to stop looking over your shoulder. So if you're at a conference and somebody says, what do you do? And you say something, now they're over your shoulder looking, oh my gosh, is there somebody more interesting? Right? So what are you going to say that's going to like compel them to stand there, look at you, and learn more about what you do? Like, what is that thing?
I can't stand the, so what do you do question at networking. I think it's one of the worst questions ever, because it's such a sorting question. It's people trying to figure out if they can sell something to you, or if you're like,
it's a cancel culture.
Yeah. So I when I'm asked that, I always answer, well, let me tell you why I do what I do. That'll explain the how and the what, but it's a much more compelling story. Or if I'm asking people that, I ask them, like, so what brings you here, or something more like about
more general.
Yeah, or not just in general.
Because if you ask them what they do and they give you one word answer, one time a woman said to me, I'm an esthetician. That closes your conversation, because now you think you know everything about her. However, if she would have said to me, I make your skin look great, now I'm interested. Well, how do you do that? And now there's a conversation, and now there's engagement, right? So you're not just shutting it down. I do web design. Now you're shutting. I never say I do marketing. I mean, for all intents and purposes, brand messaging and strategy is marketing, but I never say I do marketing. So I pull myself in a very specific niche, and if you can figure out a way to do that, as you're doing right now with this podcast, I think that's like the way to go, being known for something specific and be the go-to person, for doing that.
Yeah. And it's much more about explaining and this whole thing about explaining the value is what it means to the people you help with it, rather than what you actually do.
Right.
And so if you're explaining, so what do you do? You say, I help people achieve this sort of result and solve this problem. That's a much more compelling answer than the actual label of
what you're doing. Right.
Result, because there's probably a lot of different ways people can get that result, but it's the result that matters. And so it shows more of like you're focused on the people you're trying to help, not just your own expertise at this
right.
thing you find interesting, but it's just, there's so many better ways to explain value than the what. It's such especially these days where the ability to gain a specific skill or automate processes and all these things that make the what part of things not nearly as important as the why or the how, even more than they were before.
Right.
And so it's when if you explain the why and the how behind your business or your career, that's much more compelling and builds a lot stronger relationships than just focusing on the what, because the what is so
I don't even get to the what when I'm working with clients. It's what is your purpose? Why do you exist? What's your vision? What kind of future are you trying to create? What is your mission? What are you doing every day to make that vision happen? Right? So what are your values? Because people are going to connect with your brand based on your values, shared values. So these are the things. It doesn't even get to, you have to start with all of those things before you even get to, this is my product. Because people are getting to your human, point. That's what people are connecting on. They're connecting on, shared values. and they're not connecting on, I do the best at this, and I'm the best and the greatest at that. People generally, and make connections through sharing weaknesses, not strengths. So if I met you on the street and I said to you, I got an award for running and I got all A's in college and I got this certificate and that certificate, you'd be done. You'd be walking away. But if I said, my mom's having a hard time and, she's getting older, whatever, it's something that we could have potentially in common, depending on who the person is. I'm having a hard time with this, I'm having a hard time with that. And then you have a shared connection. Same thing with values. If your brand is based on integrity, if it's based on honesty, somebody say, wait, I love that. Like, that's where my values are. What is it you do? Like, what do you do again? Like, right away they'll connect with the values.
Yeah. And it sounds like you have lots of examples of helping clients with this sort of transformational reframing of how they explain what makes their service different or valuable. Do you have a particular one that stands out in your mind?
I have one. Her name is Camille Miller. She came to me, as I mentioned before, she spent a lot of money on marketing before she came to me, and people just weren't getting her. She spent a lot of money. And, the process I take with my clients through asking the right questions helps uncover, people a lot of times have a hard time explaining the heart of what they do and why they do it. And they just can't seem to get there. These are all highly intelligent people, all very smart, all successful in their own right. A lot of my clients have been in business 5+ years. So, but through our process, of asking the questions and going through that purpose and vision and mission and buyer persona and all of those things, we came to the core of her organization and the heart, which is becoming a soul professional. So these are people who participate in this movement, are people that put their purpose beyond their profit. They wake up every day, they say, what am I going to do to give back? What am I going to do, to help somebody, to make someone's life better? Do they want to make money? Absolutely. They're in it to make money. Everybody has to be self-supporting, but they care a little bit more about what they're doing when they wake up. So we developed that soul professional. And we developed that tagline, purpose beyond profit. Like, right away, what she cares about, what her values are, and if you're in that, persona, you right away can recognize this is where I want to be. Right. So, she's one example. There's another woman I worked with who was in business for 7 years. And through our process of, discovery, she, literally will say she rediscovered her passion and her, her wanting, her reason for wanting to do what she's doing. So that would be another one. But you really need to get to your own heart and your own reason. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And identify exactly the people who are going to care about what you do. Because you're sharing the same values and interests. So those are your people, right? Those are the people that you're going to connect with. And those are the people who are going to purchase your product or buy your services. That's your niche. Those are your people.
And I think a lot of people in general, not just entrepreneurs or people in business, aren't that aware of who they are and what drives them as a person in general. Because I've worked with people in similar discussions and working through basically a version of the 5 whys exercise, which is you start with something very simple and surface level, that statement like, so tell me what got you into the sort of work you're doing, and they answer that question and just keep going and asking more and more deep questions until eventually they get back to this. Usually I found it's a core event between the ages of 8 and 10.
Right.
That are like, oh my gosh, this is kind of what set their values and their direction in life, and kind of who they are today is based off of those experiences at that age. And one of my favorite moments is seeing that realization. People have to go, oh, this makes total sense now why I'm where I am today and where I want to go. And you can tell that they knew that, like, they had the memories and stuff, but they never really connected the dots and didn't have that kind of awareness of who they are and what they've been through and how important it is. And when you can just see the body language change and the kind of confidence improve, because before they might have felt like, especially if they're struggling or dealing with some challenges, which we all are, but it's like they have like this renewed sense of confidence and focus and drive because there's more self-assured and understand that they're not just doing this thing because they fell into it or kind of for no particular reason. It's really this is who I am and why, and they understand the why they're here and what they want to accomplish. And that's such a huge differentiator. And like you said, attracts other people who've had similar experiences, often similar challenges in life. And that really draws, like you said, their tribe around them and makes finding success and finding the right clients and power partners and all that stuff way more effective and easy than if you're just talking again about what you do.
Right. And it's like, to your point with the confidence, it's, I always talk about clarity, confidence, and consistency, because once you're clear on your value and your message, your voice gains that, the confidence, the tone, your posture, everything. So, and people are now compelled to listen to you. So once you're clear and they're compelled to listen, now you have to be consistent with what you're saying. So that builds the trust. So you have the clarity, the confidence, and the consistency is going to build your brand. It's going to, help people connect to, what you value, what you're doing, what you're offering. Your brand is a person. They want to like you, and you want to like them. And that's how you're going to build a good brand with integrity. You're going to get trust, and you're going to have a following. And you're going to have clients or customers, depending on what your business is. But your go-to is clarity, confidence, and consistency. If you could stay focused on those three things, and just be on track and make that, your foundation, for what you're trying to do and sell, that will help you, go the, extra mile if you're struggling right now. So, yeah, that clarity, confidence, and consistency. When I work with my clients, we get to that point, and then you get to messaging pillars, which is your next step. But as like your first baby steps, getting that clarity, I think getting the clarity is the biggest component. And then everything kind of, follows that. But you have to be clear on your value. What are you bringing to the table, and why are your people or your tribe going to care about what you're offering? How is it going to help them? I care about helping people, Yeah,
and it's not just solopreneurs that this works for. It's even for startups or larger companies.
Oh, everything. Everybody, 100%.
Yeah.
Nonprofits. I mean, I had one person come to me and say, it was a nonprofit. They said, well, our social media person's putting out one thing and our email marketing person's putting out another thing. And they weren't on the same page. They weren't, and a lot of companies, the same thing. Their employees aren't consistent with their message and what they're doing and what they're offering. If the consistency has to be internal as well as external. You all have to be on the same page. Has to be on the same page, recognizable and consistent. So that's how you build relationships, and that's how you're going to build the trust and the loyalty.
Yeah, and there's so many companies where like their marketing has one feel to it, and then a customer that gets, oh, I want to book a sales call, they go to the sales team, and it is completely different feel and style. And it's like, is this the same company? And it's such a jarring experience that it derails the sales process. It makes it a lot harder to get through that because everything's so inconsistent and siloed.
Exactly.
And it's a matter of the company doesn't know who the company is and like what the values are in there, or they have like values that are on a wall, but they don't really embody it. They don't live it.
Right.
And so it's everything they're trying to do to bring in sales is basically hamstringed because they don't have that focus and that consistent messaging that builds the trust and makes the client experience seamless and enjoyable.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Esta. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human
pleasure.
Connection Podcast, please like, leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Esta, please check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.